On this Wednesday night, getting Olympic gold. Canada's Andre De Grasse dashes to the top of the podium.
I knew he would take it.
The records he just shattered. Accusations of racism after police shot and killed a black man in Quebec.
Instead of getting help, he got 3 bullets.
Demanding justice for Jean-René Jr. Olivier. Skepticism over Ontario's plan to keep COVID out of classrooms. And mounting pressure to mandate shots for healthcare workers. Plus, a nuttier version of the Olympics.
UK up first. Here he comes.
The competition where things can get squirrely.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Farah Nasser.
Good evening to you, and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with that stunning golden moment for Canadian sprinter Andre De Grasse. Now, for years, he's been one of the best in the world, but now he's officially on top after winning gold in the men's 200 meters in Tokyo. De Grasse crossed the finish line in a blistering 19.62 seconds. Now, that is both a personal best and a new Canadian record. The 26-year-old from Markham, Ontario is no stranger to the podium. He's now won 5 Olympic medals, but this is his first gold. And he is the first Canadian in nearly 100 years to win the 200 meters event. Crystal Goomansingh has tonight's top story on the race and the reaction.
Here comes De Grasse, accelerating.
In less than 20 seconds, Andre De Grasse rewrote Canadian track and field history, accomplishing something that no man has done since 1928. And to do it, he had to overcome a slow start against a loaded field of American sprinting stars. Victory was anything but assured. His incredible finishing push overwhelmed the field, resulting in a glorious, hard-fought victory.
I knew it was going to be tight, and it was tight, so definitely thankful and appreciative that, I got the gold.
That laugh and smile, hallmarks of the Canadian star, a humble and hard-working guy who originally wanted to play basketball.
Oh, I'm wearing the wrong color.
De Grasse's mom may not be wearing red, but she is definitely proud.
The strength he has at the end of his race, I knew he would take it. He was really hungry for this. He really wanted to bring home this Olympic gold medal for Canada, for himself, for the family and everybody.
De Grasse now has 5 Olympic medals, but this is his first gold.
It's God-given, man. It's a God-given gift that he was born with. Like I said, I've been in the game a long time, and what Andre was able to accomplish in, the first year of formal training or formal coaching, it just doesn't happen.
Tony Sharp saw greatness in De Grasse back when he was just 17 and enrolled him in a development program.
Running fast is great, but Andre brings the full picture to the table. So I got to tell you, again, I'll just go back. He's a real role model, and people love Andre because he's just a good person.
The accolades are pouring in for the 26-year-old, but he is not done yet. He will be taking part in the 4x100 relay, giving him yet another shot to flash that big smile, chuckle, and hold up the maple leaf. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
Canada is now in 15th place in the overall medal count with 15 medals, 4 gold, 4 silver, and 7 bronze. And Canada still has several more medal chances before the games wrap up this weekend. The Canadians will be pushing for that podium spot in the men's 4x100 meter relay this Friday. And there's also the men's decathlon. After the first 5 events, 2 Canadians are in medal position. Damien Warner is in first, and Pierce Lepage is in third. And tomorrow, the Canadian women's soccer team goes for gold against Sweden. The match is scheduled for 10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, which is 11 a.m. Friday in Tokyo. But both the Canadians and the Swedes want the start time pushed back to later in the day, and that's because of extreme heat. The forecast is calling for late morning temperatures that could feel like the low 40s. The IOC has not yet responded to the request. There's a new development in the saga of the Olympic sprinter from Belarus who said she'd feared returning to her home country. Krystyna Tymanovskaya has touched down in Poland. The 24-year-old sought refuge at the Polish embassy in Tokyo earlier this week after she said team officials tried to send her home early because she criticized team coaches. Tymanovskaya said she'd be punished by Belarus's authoritarian government if she returned home, and she feared for her safety. She and her husband were granted humanitarian visas by Poland. And in Japan, the pandemic threatens to overshadow the excitement of the Games. Cases are rising at such a rapid rate, the government made a controversial decision to limit hospitalizations. The Prime Minister says only people who are suffering serious symptoms should be hospitalized, while people with moderate symptoms should isolate at home. And on Tuesday, the head of the Japan Medical Association urged the government to declare a nationwide state of emergency. Japan reported 14,000 new cases in the past 24 hours. More than 4,100 of them are in Tokyo, and 90% of the new cases in the capital are the Delta variant. Here in Canada, the Delta variant is expected to fuel a rise in cases as we head into the fall. That has provincial governments assessing how they'll handle a return to in-person learning. The Ontario government says it won't make COVID-19 vaccines mandatory, unlike measles and the tetanus shots, but students will be required to wear masks indoors, and the province plans to spend millions on air filters. Seán O'Shea looks at whether that'll be enough to reduce the risk of COVID-19 in classrooms.
34 days to the start of school again in Ontario. It's an unsettling time for this mother whose 2 children contracted COVID-19 in the last year.
I think my kids are appropriately terrified to get it again.
But Christine Baker is resigned to reality.
At some point, you got to start doing your stuff again, and going to school is one of those things.
Ontario's plan is to get students back in class. It includes mandatory mask use indoors and physical distancing as much as possible. And now $25 million to be spent on air filters.
All occupied learning environments, including classrooms, without mechanical ventilation, will now have a standalone HEPA filter placed within it.
Air filtration is important, says this engineering professor who specializes in air quality. Professor Jeffrey Siegel says $25 million is better than nothing, although he says some schools, especially older ones, need far more retrofitting than others to be safe.
We should be targeting the resources that are available to where they're going to have the most benefit.
There is no panacea that's HVAC related. It's really just a matter of what is the right solution in the context of the building that you're dealing with, and every building will be different.
Just as every province is different, British Columbia hasn't decided on mask wearing for schools, and it won't insist students stick to their own cohorts. Alberta's already lifted all COVID restrictions, and masks won't be required at school. Still, critics of Ontario's back-to-school plans aren't impressed.
Mr. Ford said, we're releasing the best plan in the world for schools. And we actually ended up with classrooms closed for more time than any other jurisdiction.
And this recommendation.
Open windows to help keep these classrooms and learning environments as safe as humanly possible.
For parents looking ahead after the last exhausting school year, the hope that this one will be easier.
All we can do is try it and go. We have to move forward.
Seán O'Shea, Global News, Toronto.
2 major health groups are calling for vaccinations to be mandatory for all healthcare workers. The Canadian Medical Association and the Canadian Nurses Association say these shots are key to helping keep the public safe. Similar organizations in Ontario have called for mandatory vaccines also. In that province, more than 596,000 healthcare workers have received at least 1 dose, and more than 577,000 their second. But as Abigail Beeman reports, there are questions around whether it's legal to make it mandatory.
If we are going to make good for this winter, we better get on with it now.
The Registered Nurses Association of Ontario was the first to call for mandatory vaccinations for healthcare workers last month. Now, as more organizations join the push across the country, its CEO is not pleased Ontario's premier won't heed it.
I'm disappointed that the province doesn't have the guts.
So far, no province has made vaccination mandatory. Tuesday, the Canadian Medical Association and the Canadian Nurses Association put out a joint call.
We work in an industry that everyone that needs us is potentially susceptible to picking something up and having poor outcomes.
I think it's always challenging for governments to make these decisions, but I think our job as the leaders in healthcare is to sometimes make difficult decisions and lead with science. And I think the science is clear.
Unlike Ontario and Alberta, BC hasn't shut down the idea.
It's important to me that we have all of this nailed down before we go into the fall respiratory season.
As for whether individual employers can act on their own,
there actually is quite a bit of legal basis to say that employers, if need be, can require vaccinations.
We know some healthcare workers are vaccine hesitant, but there's a lack of national data about just how many have their shot.
A lot of healthcare workers are marginalized women, so a lot of them have questions on pregnancy, fertility, and these are all valid questions to have, and all it really takes is having those one-on-one discussions.
Sabina Vora-Miller has helped many with questions like that decide to roll up their sleeve. She says the reasons some healthcare workers haven't been vaccinated are varied. It's a complicated issue.
Whether we have these healthcare workers who are working 100 hours per week and just don't have the time to go get vaccinated, or don't have sick time to go get vaccinated, or are worried how are they going to do their job if they have a sore arm, for instance.
She believes the vaccination rate would climb if there was more education and paid sick days post-shot. Abigail Beeman, Global News, Ottawa.
The World Health Organization is calling for a moratorium on booster shots until at least the end of September to help ensure enough doses are available for low-income countries. The WHO says it wants to see 10% of people in every country vaccinated first. It also says the science is unproven about whether giving booster shots to people who already have 2 doses is effective. Israel, France, and Germany are among the countries already administering boosters. Canada says it's planning for the possibility, and it's watching the science carefully. There are now more than 200 million cases of the virus globally. In China, 12 million people in Wuhan are being tested after the city detected its first domestic cases of the Delta variant. Wuhan, where COVID-19 first emerged in late 2019, had reported no local infections since May 2020. On Monday, the city recorded 3. And in Beijing, part of an industrial and technology zone was sealed off to help contain a growing outbreak. Heartbreak, outrage, and accusations of racism in Quebec. Coming up, the calls for justice for a black man killed by police. Plus, the wildfires devouring parts of Greece. Quebec is launching a new police unit following a sharp rise in shootings and gang-related violence.
We will be creating a targeted team, an integrated team, une équipe intégrée, that will be 100% concentrated on fighting against violence linked to guns and gangs.
Montreal and provincial police are going to work together to target gun violence in Quebec's largest city. On Monday evening, 3 people were killed in a drive-by shooting at an apartment building. Those deaths bring the number of homicides in Montreal to 16 so far this year. There is growing anger over the actions of police in a suburb of Montreal after officers fatally shot a 37-year-old black man. It happened in Repentigny on Sunday morning. The victim's mother said she called police for help and she hoped officers would take her son, who was in distress and experiencing a mental health crisis, to hospital. The family is demanding justice, blaming racism inside the city's police force for the deadly response.
Instead of getting help, he got 3 bullets. As a mother myself, I have 3 kids. I feel that we are not safe. We want answers. We want answers.
Police say the man was armed and threatened officers. We go now to Olivia O'Malley. She's in Repentigny. Olivia, tell us about the vigil and protest happening behind you.
Farah, the sit-in just started just a few minutes ago here outside Repentigny City Hall. Right behind me, Jean-René Olivier's family and friends have taken to the mic, calling for the end of systemic racism, to take it down here. And dozens of attendees are wearing white shirts. On the shirt, it does say Justice for Junior. And across the front, there are 3 bullet holes. Repentigny police killed the 37-year-old on Sunday morning. His grieving mother called the police for help, but instead she says they shot her son. She says Olivier said he was seeing people who wanted to hurt him. According to Quebec's Independent Investigations Office, mandated to investigate, when officers arrived, Olivier was disoriented and holding a knife. Police claim they tried to negotiate with him, but he fled on foot. They allegedly tried to use pepper spray to subdue him, but were unsuccessful. His family says he was shot 3 times. As for the 3 bullet holes on the shirts, and want answers. The protesters here now are actually taking a knee, and they all say they want justice. A lot of the members of the Black community in Repentigny say they don't feel safe. Take a listen to what his cousin had to say earlier.
Everybody to feel that our skin color is not a problem. We want to be treated like white people, because we feel that white people have more privilege than us.
Protesters here have taken a knee and are having a moment of silence. They say they won't rest until things change here in Repentigny. Back to you, Farah.
Another mental health call ending in tragedy. Olivia O'Malley in Repentigny, Quebec. Thank you. Afghans left behind ahead. What's being done to help those who helped our troops during the war in Afghanistan?
You're watching Global National.
Thousands of people took to the streets of Beirut to mark the 1-year anniversary of that deadly port explosion that devastated the city. Protesters are calling for senior officials to be held accountable. More than 200 people were killed in that blast. It happened after a fire broke out, igniting a huge quantity of ammonium nitrate stored unsafely for years. It was one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history. So far, an investigation has failed to determine who is responsible. The first round of Afghan refugees who gave critical support to Canadian troops in the war on terror are now in Canada. As they start their new life here, some of their loved ones are still in Afghanistan, where they face danger from the Taliban, which is gaining ground against government forces. Redmond Shannon reports on the race to help refugees, their families, and the surprise reunion between one veteran and an Afghan helper.
The aftermath of a Taliban attack that reached a little closer to the heart of Afghanistan's government. The bomb targeting the defense minister's house injured 3 people. Bismillah Khan Mohammadi was not home at the time of the attack, but a 4-hour gun battle afterwards killed 8 civilians. Another Kabul bomb Wednesday injured 2 more, reflecting a recent spike in innocent victims across the country as fighting intensifies.
Taliban ground offensive and Afghan National Army airstrikes are causing the most harm, and added it is deeply concerned about indiscriminate shooting and damage to health facilities and civilian homes.
Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani says the sudden withdrawal of US troops to be completed this month is partly to blame for the violence. The Taliban targeting anyone who may have helped Western troops. It's making gains around Herat, Lashkar Gah and the former Canadian base of Kandahar.
We help the Canadian Army in Afghanistan.
These Afghans in Canada say there is no time to waste in saving those who supported Canadian forces.
I knew your dad. Oh, really? Yeah, I was there in 2006 when you built the house for him. And you were playing video games inside all the time. Do you remember me?
This week's Ottawa protest led to a chance reunion between Ataullah Mohammed and veteran Dustin Seabrook.
His father was assassinated by the Taliban just for hanging around, being polite to Canadians.
Seabrook and other Canadians used to call Fida Mohammed Popeye.
I can't say enough about these guys and how much danger there really is. It's unbelievable, and it's the more we wait, the window gets shut on all these families.
The first refugees have now landed in Canada, with more to follow in the weeks ahead. Campaigners are still concerned that siblings and parents are not explicitly eligible. Ottawa only says it's taking an inclusive approach and will bring thousands to safety. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
A searing summer heat wave over southern Europe has sparked raging forest fires and emergencies in 7 countries. People on the outskirts of Athens have been ordered to leave their homes with a wildfire closing in. Right now, Greece is grappling with one of its hottest weeks since 1987. Scorching temperatures climbed to 47 degrees on Tuesday. Extreme heat has also fueled massive fires in Turkey. At least 8 people are dead, and thousands of locals and tourists are fleeing coastal resort towns. At least 3 people are dead and dozens hurt after 2 passenger trains crashed into each other in the Czech Republic. A high-speed train traveling from Munich to Prague ran a stop signal and then collided head-on with a local commuter train. The drivers of both trains were killed, along with the passenger. 8 people were sent to hospital. About 50 others suffered minor injuries. The Czech transportation minister says human error was likely the cause. Up next, the Squirrel Summer Games. How one man brought the Olympics to his own backyard.
Welcome, Squirrel sports fans, to the final of the Squirrel Olympics, the Leptathlon.
Athletes in Tokyo are not the only ones going for gold right now. A British man created Olympic-themed obstacle courses in his backyard for squirrels.
Which should be an easy start for these contestants. It's the triple and long jumps.
There are 4 complex courses that challenge the creature's agility, balance, and strength.
Decides to play it safe. Only the rings to go.
The man behind the pun-filled commentary is Steve Barley. It took him 3 months to build and encourage his furry friends to compete on camera.
He's done it. He's got the gold medal for Portugal.
In the end, Portugal came out on top, but the real winners may be all of us. Watch out, Andre De Grasse. And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Farah Nasser. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Tonight's Your Canada is Gull Lake in Alberta. We love seeing Your Canada, so please email us your pictures at viewers@globalnational.com. Until tomorrow, take care of yourselves and each other.